My goodness. I'm trying to go live on Instagram. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday live stream. Just give me a moment here to get up and running over here on Instagram. There we go. Should be almost there. There we go. So, welcome today. Today, I am talking about how to write an exceptional album of music that stands out and why that's so important today. I go live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can find me on Instagram and also over on YouTube, and all the archives are over on YouTube. I talk about voice, technique, performance, music, how to build your sound and direction, A&R, old school A&R, artist development, and music career and business. Really about how to build a creative life in music that you love, that fits you and your career. So thanks for tuning in today. Um, I'm discussing how to write an exceptional album of music that stands out and why that's so important. Quick announcement, this conversation is just a start to this whole conversation about sound and direction and artist identity. If you're really interested in finding your artist identity and building your sound and direction for your next project, you can learn our curated A&R process in private sessions or by joining the waitlist for my upcoming signature songwriting circle, which starts in July every year. We didn't give it last year, but we are back with a new songwriting team, and we are starting at the end of July this year. So join the wait list so you're first to be notified. You'll find that on carricole.com/signature-songwriting-circle. And this is where you learn my curated A&R process. And this process alone has made such a huge difference in artists building their following and growing their fan base and developing music opportunities. We can see it right there in the stream stats. People have won awards. They've placed in the top of the charts. It really makes a huge difference when you do this process. So I'm going to detail it a little bit. The thing today, and then you can learn more about by going to carricole.com. The power you have as an artist really lies in your songs, your songwriting, your message, your topics, your artist identity, building that right down into the songs, your sound and direction, and really carving that sound and direction so that you stand out instead of blending in and getting lost in the sea of independent music out there. So the truth is, people love great music. They get in line for great music. They share great music. They play it on repeat. They tell all their friends and they share it far and wide. So for you, the artist out there, the independent artist out there, without artist development or real A&R development, today the A&R departments at labels are just talent scouts. But they really used to help the artists really develop their sound and direction and help them evolve their music. And that process is pretty much out the door now. So we've created a very curated process for you to go through that you can actually skip ahead a couple albums in development in really getting there quicker, faster, and putting out better music. Because we all know that with 100,000 songs being released on Spotify every day, which is enormously exhausting to think about, that the way that you stand out is by having superior music in the marketplace. So here's the thing, like how, for you, the artist making music, the goal is to write and create the best music you can, right? Put it out in the world and see where it goes. But how do you know that you're really on track? And what are the processes and tools that even big artists use during the making of their record that will improve the outcome? So I've been making records officially for over 20 years now, starting, yes, be authentic, absolutely. And how do we find, there's so many different parts of you that are authentic. How do we find what that is? But you're dead on, Kate, in your answer there. So I've been making records officially for over 20 years now, around 20 years, starting with my own and going through that process myself as an artist of really finding my artist identity, which there's a lot of different options there. So it's kind of hard to figure out. And starting with my own record and then countless other records, I did produce 5 records. It's not what I want to do. It's not my end goal, but I love the process, and I know intimately the process of making a record from inception of the writing to the full production. And I love to shepherd that process for artists. I do that at my label services company. And we're making 3 records right now where artists come to work with me and my professional team of songwriters. But we curate the material uh, really to fit the artist. And you can get an example of that experience in our signature songwriting circle that we make available to anyone. Um, and there are steps along the way, really, where the magic is made, and knowing how to listen to music differently, what you're listening for, how to find your basic sound, and then your wild card, and then your subgenre, this subgenre, that. It's a process. And here are my 5 tips I'm going to go over today to help you make an exceptional album that stands out, wins awards, and furthers your reach and really gets you there quicker. Number 1 is to put yourself on a writing schedule. And I'm going to go through these in just a moment, but here's the list. Put yourself on a writing schedule, teaching you how to dig and excavate. Expand, and 3 is expand and elevate your sound and direction. Evolve your sound and direction with each project, but not by single, because otherwise you spot treat each single and you don't really develop a sound. Write 2 to 3 times what you need. And that number 3 is really the A&R process. Number 4 is write 2 to 3 times what we need and why that's important. I'll explain in a moment. And then really to target your album to help you deliver the next phase in your career. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Let me dive into the content now. Hang on, let me just pull up my notes. This is also on the blog of the week. So every Wednesday, our blog comes out at 8 o'clock Eastern, and then I do a live stream based on that topic. So if you really want a blow-by-blow written out format, go over to carriecole.com/blog, and you'll be able to, look at this again. And those of you on Instagram, if you want to go and take more notes and listen again, go over to YouTube, to the live stream, to the live page, and you'll see the lives are recorded live every week over there. So you'll also see the archive. Okay, so putting yourself on a writing schedule. So creating a writing schedule is a powerful way to achieve your goals and also to keep to your goals, right? It allows you to create a process for your writing and creativity. I did this with my album. I'm also doing this. I'm writing a book right now, and I have a schedule. And deliverables based on certain dates. And while you may not meet that schedule exactly, because it's the creative life, right? There's an enormous gap between talent and skill. And the way to close that gap between talent and skill, or vision and ideas, and actualizing that, is a large volume of work. So the only way to get really good is to write a lot of songs and to write regularly, right? So if you only write every 2 months, or you write when you squeeze in a little session for an hour, like every 3 weeks or something, that's not really enough to stimulate the muse, to stimulate the songwriting gods to come to you, right? That's why I recommend in my Step Up to the Spotlight program, I put people on a schedule. I design a schedule. We have different schedules if you're self-employed or if you have a day job, how to squeeze everything in. And one of them is 10 minutes of writing song concepts, because you want to stimulate the muse every day, because you're a songwriter all the time. No matter what you're doing, you're looking out through your songwriting eyes, but you have to stay current with that. So if you're just jotting down ideas for 10 minutes a day, even song concepts, and then having a regular weekly writing, 1 or 2 if you're serious, 2 or 3 if you're serious, and you want to, make a dent. If you're doing that frequently and regularly, you're stimulating the muse every day. And then you're going to get ideas when you're dreaming, when you're sleeping, when you're daydreaming, and you're going to be more current with viewing the world from your songwriter eyes, instead of like tucking it away while you're doing everything else and then only pulling it out at night, or just a little bit, right? So putting yourself on a schedule, come up with a schedule. We have actually inside Step Up to the Spotlight as well, which is my artist development online course that you can just go sign up for. It's 6 modules, and it goes through, step leveling up your music, stepping up your music, and all the pieces of that in the craft area. And then we get into the mindset piece of really how to manage your career and your mindset, which is extremely important and often where people fall short. And then we go into branding and artist identity. And then in module 4, we go into your game plan, like organizing your plan of development or growth or business career, music career, wherever you are, or combining them together. And then module 5 is a 52-week artist development plan that is how to write a record in a year. And why is a record important? Does anybody know, versus singles? I know it's easier for artists financially to release a single. There's pros and cons to both. But one of the problems of only having singles is the tendency to scatter a bit sound-wise, and then you're not really creating a sound. And when you go to an artist Spotify, if you just see a string of singles and you don't see an EP or an album, you just think that they're just like starting out, or, you don't get a substantial enough collection to really be able to dive into that artist material. And for business, that's really important, like to get booked at festivals or booking agent or kind of the next level of your career. That's important. I'll talk about that coming up. But songs, putting yourself on a schedule is really important, because we know at the end of the day that if you don't do that, everything else will pull you away from your music, right? Anybody have that problem? Life is pulling at you, your family's pulling at you, your job's pulling at you. Everything will come first, and it's very easy to for your music to come last. And so putting yourself on a schedule is you really making a commitment. Even if you're not keeping to it perfectly, you've thought it out and you're finding the places, and put it right on your schedule. Block out that time, right? And that's the same if you're an artist. That's the same if you're a creator. If you're making jewelry, or if you are an artist, or you are a writer, like a schedule is really important, right? Songs are the number one key to your success. Your content, what you create, is your number one key. As Grammy-winning producer Linda Perry says, as a producer, we pray that artists have strong enough songs when they come to record, because no amount of great production in the world can make up for an average song. So try this. I have a little schedule over on the blog. Write 1 song a week or 1 song a month if you're a slower writer or have less time. Schedule it in your calendar. Make it non-negotiable. Estimate 4+ hours a week to write a song. So if you have 2 2-hour slots, or you have 1 4-hour slot on the weekend, or whatever it is, schedule it right in your calendar and make it non-negotiable. Write the shell of the song at a minimum, the verse, the pre-chorus, and the chorus. And then tweak. Songs are not written, they're rewritten. And then demo it. And then go on to the next song. You'll discover so much about your sound and direction as you write consistently. Write about topics that deeply matter to you. Try changing up keys and tempos so that as you write, so there's some variety. One of the easiest ways to change up tempos is to grab a tempo from a song that sounds like it's in the vein and vibe of the one you want to write. Turn that song off, forget about that melody, just grab the tempo and then write from that. Number 2 is to dig and excavate first. So spend some time pondering, why this album now? What do I really have to say? What's going on with me on the inside? Great artists like Hosier talk about how they like to lock themselves in a room. Have you ever heard that? Lock themselves in a room and not come out until they have a record. It's really important to incubate and to really dive into, it's really a metaphor for how to tune out the outside world in order to tune into your inner world to write from. Because first you really need to get in touch with, what am I feeling? What is going on in my life? Because art is always reflecting life. And songs that mean something to you are more impactful. So it's common to not want to dig into the uncomfortable stuff, but that's where the great songs are. That's where great art comes from. And people are looking for real music. They aren't looking for fluff. So real means real, as Kate said, be authentic. And that means from real life. The more you write about real life, with leaving out the specificities of like my grandma or those kinds of things, then you're really touching those very universal themes. Number 3 is to expand and elevate your sound and direction. So listen to music a lot. Artists have a wide listening palette. Who has a wide listening palette, right? You listen to a lot of different kinds of music. So it's good to have a wide listening palette. It's a sign of a strong musical ear. But when you're ready to refine your sound and direction for your next project, you want to narrow the field to identify your signature, your artist identity, and what you sound best at. Artists don't like to be boxed in, but you need a home base, a home genre first. And that home genre can be a blend of things as long as it's clearly defined so the listener can identify what they are listening to, right? And so start by making lists. What did you listen to growing up? What were some of the periods that we were more obsessed with this or that? What are you listening to now? Who are the artists or the songs that represent a sound that is close to what you want? You're never going to find it exactly. And then you want to listen for a sound that is slightly off the beaten path, like a wild card. We call it a wild card. And then you pull in small layers of that wild card to really bring innovation. But this is a sophisticated or detailed process. And we have an A&R profile. We have an A&R session, a private session that I do where you get the A&R profile and you go deep on it. And you really want to use that A&R profile. And then last year or 2 years ago, I developed a new profile that is an A&R production profile that is really the creative brief for the producer and for your sound and direction. And while it may slightly tweak and change as you're moving through a project, hopefully not single by single, but like a collection of material, you're always up leveling or evolving your sound and direction. But you really want to carve it out. And when we do it correctly, when I do it in my A&R profiles, private sessions, or you get that when you do Signature Songwriting Circle, just the tip of it though. Usually we go, much deeper into the process with more sessions to really develop it like we do at our label. Or you can do it privately with me, just at Carrie Cool Voice and Music. This process really helps to bring that innovation and carve that sound. And we can even go back years later and look at the A&R and it stands up, right? We might bring in another little element in a new project, but because the artist learns more about what they really want and like, it's an evolution. Number 4 is to write 2 or 3 times what you need. Why do I say this? That sounds like a lot of work. I know it is. But as a rule, we want to write twice what we need in order to pick the cherries. So for a single, write 3 songs to select the top song. For a 7-song EP, write 14 to 21 songs to select the top 7 to 8 songs. For a 10-song album, write 20 to 30 to select the top 10 or 12 songs. And the reason we do this is because this is a process that big artists use, by the way. This is not, it's very serious business making records and being an artist and being successful. And the success of the project is not just in the voice or in the sound, it's in the songs. So the songwriting is extremely important. Like Linda Perry said, we pray that a singer has strong enough songs when they come into the studio, because no amount of production will make up for an average song. So that means the lyric, that means the melody, that means the topic, that means the message, that means the sound and direction, that, all of those pieces, right? And the benefit also of writing 2 to 3 times what you need is to really be serious in the industry. You need a song catalog. So that catalog would be what you've released out there. Say you have 10 songs out, or maybe you have 20 or 30 songs out. But you also have a catalog of demos always in the wings for the next project or on your way. So when you go to see a music publisher, you're showing them the released material, but you're also showing your demoed songs that are in the wings waiting. And that's a very important thing for publishers to see, or for you to have, just for anyone that you're working with in the industry, especially when it comes to songwriting, that you're showing your craft as a writer. And when we write, we have a process at the label that we do, which is to write 2 to 3 times what we need, and then we demo everything. You want to demo everything well so that the song has a chance because it's demoed well in terms of equality amongst the songs. And then we put them in a G sheet, in a Excel sheet, and link to each song, and people vote on the songs. And so then you can see which songs are really popping out. And that's a bit of test marketing. I did that when I got signed. We went through that process. And I was really surprised because some of the songs that I didn't like as much, people loved. So it really helps to, and that's a process that big artists like Adele and John Mayer and Coldplay use, because writing songs is big business and putting out albums is big business. And you're going to invest a lot of money in that record. So you want to do a little bit of test marketing, and you want to take it seriously, and you want to have a wide enough voting pool, a mixture of professionals and fans and friends and family or whatever, so that you have a wide pool to pull from in terms of taste. But your songs really are the core of whether your album will be a success or not. And so there's more over on the blog about that. And then number 5 is to target your album to help deliver the next phase in your career. So you want to think about, even right down to the writing process, when you're getting ready for the writing and you're starting the writing process, think about where you want your album to lead you to, right? So besides the growth that you want to experience, does anybody know where they want their next album to lead to? You know, maybe besides the growth you want to experience in your fan base and socials, what is the next where everybody's focus is? But we're forgetting to focus on the industry, which is keeping a lot of artists from growing. What is the next place you want to go to in your music? For example, if you want to grow as an artist and play bigger stages, maybe make the record that would be played on those bigger stages. If you want to build a niche audience, gear your song choice and production for the stages you would play on for that niche audience. If you want to build a career as a songwriter, then gear your album towards showing your best songwriting craft and ability. However, don't show variety. I can write this genre to that genre. No, you want to lead with your strengths and show a style and genre, even as a songwriter writing in multiple genres. Like Laurie McKenna is a very well-known songwriter, or Dan Wilson is a very well-known industry songwriter. They also have records as artists, which have a very clearly defined genre. So it's really important. You could show that behind the scenes in your songwriting catalog, but publishers aren't really interested in that. They want to hire you to write that kind of song with that artist, right? Or if you want to get into sync, write songs that are good for sync and compile those for your album. So that's just a quick smattering of these 5 tips for how to write an exceptional music album to really stand out in the marketplace. Knowing what you want out of your album helps steer the right direction, even with your writing, your sound and production direction, and with your song choice and style and direction. So I will open it up for questions now from the audience. So put your questions in the chat, in the comments, anything about what I talked about making an album, or anything about voice, any questions that you have, or anything about any of the programs or products or services that you need more clarity on. We have our Step Up to the Spotlight artist development program. It's a 6-week, it's an online course you can sign up for right away, just to really step up your career and get your direction more chiseled in your artist identity and all of those things. We have ASM, which is our Artist Sanctuary membership, which is a monthly membership. I have my Vocal Freedom Circle, which teaches my cold vocal method. Those are just sort of the basics that are always available. And then Signature Songwriting Circle starts in July. Andrea is saying, how specific or general should lyrics be so they sound real but still feel relatable? Great question, Andrea. So the way to approach that, a really good example is this song, Love Song by Sarah Bareilles. You know that song, I'm not going to write you a love song because you asked for it, because you need one, right? And that big song was a big hit for her. It's very interesting, the story of that song, which illustrates this point, which is that that song She was signed to a record label and she was going through a difficult spot with them. And she really thought they were going to drop her, that like that was it. And so using her songwriting as her therapy and her tool, which it should always be first, because otherwise you don't get to, the more deeply personal you get, the more deeply universal you get. But then there's an element in the songwriting craft for how you don't include the specificity that will distract the listener. So in that song, if you go and look at those lyrics as an exercise, Andrea, this would be a great exercise for you. So in the writing of that song, she wrote that song. It was a complicated subject for her as a writer, making it universal. How's she going to do that? She's writing a song to her record label saying they wanted her to write a love song. And she was like, I'm not going to write you a love song because you asked for it, because you need one. Okay. So if you look at that lyric all the way through the song, every single lyric in that song, if you're thinking of that narrative of her actual personal experience of the label dropping her and her response to the label, it follows suit all the way through. This is a great example. And then if you look again, so look first there, and then look at the lyric again from the perspective of an audience that doesn't know that internal story, that really most people just think she wrote that song because of a relationship and her partner that wanted her to write a love song for them. And if you look at the lyric from start to finish, every single lyric in that song follows suit with that narrative. So one of the directions that we give to artists is write that very personal song and really go all the way there, because if you don't dig deep enough, you're not going to tap that really deep core emotional feeling. And let's face it, songs are feelings, and that's how we bond, right? So if you don't go deep enough, you don't tap that. And then after you've written it, then go back over it in another process of taking out any lyric or any specificity that's distracting the listener. And you can, get feedback. Bring your song to me. You can do a 30-minute music review. You can send me 5 songs. And, if I send me 5 songs, I'll do an overview. If you send me 1 song, I can get very detailed. And I can mark the places where it's too specific, or I can mark the places in the song where it's not specific enough. We have a sale coming up next week also, and you get 30% off all the private sessions. So that's starting next Wednesday. But you can always do a music review. I have a brand review, a vocal analysis, or a music review. They're just 30 minutes. And if you buy in the sale, you get from 30 to 50% off. So that's how I would handle that. Troy says, hi, Troy. Hi, Carrie. Are there specific seasons of the year that we should target for an album release? Oh, that's a good question. As an independent, it doesn't really matter because, you don't have as much reach. So, the best time to release an album is really when you're ready, when the album's ready and when you have your content for socials and to release the record and your bio and your website updated and all of those things so that you can really take advantage of that release. But in the world of releases, like Adele will usually wait till January. January is a quiet month. There tend to be less releases then, so you have the opportunity of standing out. So that is one thought. And then if you have a seasonal song, like a summer song, release in May, end of May. If you have a Christmas song, release in November, like things like that. I hope that helps. Any other questions anybody has before we head out? It's such a, just never forget your songs are the bedrock, the foundation of your career and your voice. But the songs, if you don't have strong enough songs, you can have a great voice and it'll fall flat. Andrea, what program would you recommend for someone who has lyric and melody ideas but hasn't developed anything into full song yet? The Signature Songwriting Program. And you might also want to do Step Up first. So I would say Step Up to the Spotlight, but Step Up to the Spotlight is not just a strict songwriting program, but it addresses artist development. It addresses the voice, the songs, the schedule that you need to be on to really up level your career. And then it also addresses branding and sort of the direction of your career. And that's very inexpensive. So everybody should do Step Up to the Spotlight, to be honest. And it's not an expensive program, and you can just, go through it in your term. In your time from home, we're just doing a new release of it next week. The content is the same as 3.0, the last release. I built this program like over 10 years ago, and I have kept redoing it and updating it. And I just recently updated it, but we also updated how you move through it. So you can check complete and see, and they're in sections, they're in small increments. So you just do 10 minutes at a time or whatever. And the worksheets in Step Up Alone are unbelievable, like just unbelievable. The amount of help and assistance in working through some of these processes there. And then Signature Songwriting Circle, you've already done it. Excellent. Oh, VFC 2 summers ago. Excellent. Step Up would be great in the interim right now. And then Signature Songwriting Circle, definitely. And that starts at the end of July this year. That's a live program. I always run it live, and I didn't do it last year. So this one's going to sell out. And then we have a VIP seat. That's an additional seat if you want to write with our pro writers. So that's what I would eye and look at, Andrea, for you. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I go live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can go over to YouTube and click the live page, and you'll see all the archives if you want to really dive into specific subjects. I talk about voice, I talk about songwriting, I talk about artist identity and branding and signature songwriting, and I talk about music career, really all the phases and elements of artist development and how to really take an artist from where they are and bring them to success and bring them to that next level. So thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wildly creative week, and get that songwriting schedule on your calendar. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.